so much for joining us today. Today is a really special episode where I'm actually in a studio.
Welcome.
Yes, and Chellis Baird, the artist who's here with me, graciously is provided the space as she just recently moved into a new studio. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And along with that, there's a lot of congratulatory to go around. Chellis is also a mother of a 5-month-old son. So we're really excited to talk about motherhood and art careers. So we're really excited and honored to have Chellis with us. So yes, Chellis, thank you so much for taking the time and inviting us to your space. So yes, walk us through, tell us about this piece and the process of your artwork.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to be in this new space that's bigger and gets like much better light. So thank you for joining me. Yeah, so this piece I was sharing with you earlier is called Anticipation. And I've been thinking a lot lately about motherhood and balancing my new lifestyle with a 5-month-old son and my art career, and a lot of it involves anticipating. So this piece I made in 2018, and like most of my works, it's all about fabric exploration and material. So what you see here is fabric that I've hand painted using different types of paint, like acrylic. Sometimes I mix like a pigmented wax, but this piece in particular is mostly canvas. I was really drawn to this sort of like earthy quality by weaving different shades of blues and greens, and I was thinking a lot about the word anticipation and how, you know, we're sort of trying to anticipate the next step or the next growth of life, and sort of how we can just sort of go with the flow and be aware of certain ways of anticipating, but not so rigid. So there's a lot of like organic flow within the composition, and then there's some touches of pink. I wanted the earthiness to also have a lot of light and warmth. So this piece has quite a bit of like unexpected like touches of pink throughout the composition.
This is amazing. I mean, it looks very intricate. Once we step closer to this painting, like, how do you start? Like, do you do like preliminary sketches? Like, how do you envision your canvas to come to life?
Yeah, so I usually start with some sort of like energy or feeling or strong movement, and I experiment with different colors and textures. I occasionally will do some rough sketches, like if there's like one line or like gesture that I think is really going to help me capture that statement. But for the most part, I just dive right in, and I will often start with a base structure. Like this is a rectangle essentially. Sometimes I start with a wire form. I usually start on a wall, and sometimes while I'm working it, like there's quite a bit of like hand stitching in this work. So I would lay it on the table and work underneath the table.
Yeah, so just walk us through your career path. I know you come from like the fashion. You started your career as a fashion in the fashion industry,
Yes.
and you decided one day to become an artist. So can you walk us through the journey of being an artist?
Yes, so I worked in the fashion industry for about 11 years in New York. I worked as a designer for Ralph Lauren and Donna Karan and Tula and a few other brands in the city. I was really just drawn to fabric and material, and was always just so in love with exploring different like types of fabrics and materials and different ways that you could sculpt the human body in fabric. and how different types of fiber really can affect like the way a garment drapes. So after many years of painting in a more traditional format, sort of always on the side, like sort of parallel to my fashion career, I was working in a corporate job, but I was always painting and drawing, and I did a little bit of illustration work and a lot of like textile surface design work as well, and then was able to make that leap into fine art full time and started to re-examine what makes up a painting for me, and looked at the base ingredients of the fabric, the paint and the wood, and started to own each element in a new way to help me make my statement. I think prior to that leap, I was comparing layers of paint to weaving and thinking about how brushstrokes sort of melt together almost like a woven fabric or cloth in such a tiny way, and so I really wanted to magnify that for the viewer. So I became very fascinated with this tension of surface, of where the paint actually touches the fabric and that engagement within.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love the way you incorporated, your background, right? Like your experience in the art, in the fashion industry, the fabric. I'm sure you dealt with different types of fabrics, and you became expert in those type of fabrics. And now you're literally incorporating. That's become your brushstroke.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I was very impressed by a lot of the fabric mills in Italy and Scotland and France. I remember going on a work trip once to Le Marie in Paris and watching them make the flower corsages for Chanel, and just the hands-on like artistry that went into that type of like flower was just literally was just so overwhelming and like budding in my mind. To sort of see that kind of exposure in the manufacturing end. So I was definitely deeply impressed by that sort of handmade quality within the industry, and always had a huge passion for art. I come from a lot of artists in my family. I have an uncle that's a very prolific ceramic artist. I have an aunt that's an incredible oil painter. I have a cousin who is a really gifted oil painter out in California. He does mostly like figurative works. So I was always surrounded by a very nurturing family of like making and creating, and I was very impressed by that as well, that hands-on sort of making and thinking through craft.
That's amazing. I love the fact that I didn't know about this until now, but thank you so much for sharing. So, yeah, I didn't know you came from a family of artists, and I'm happy to actually hear that they were really encouraging, because a lot of times most people think, artists, if you become an artist, you're going to be starving, but I think that notion obviously doesn't really apply. It's just a mindset. But I love the fact that you actually grew up in a really nurturing environment, like they encourage you to become an artist. But I was just curious, why did you start with the fashion industry instead of like starting as an artist? I'm just curious about that.
Well, I went to Rhode Island School of Design, and I studied textiles there, and the unique aspect within that program is you were exposed to a lot of different types of fabric industry. So I took traditional oil painting classes in the painting department, and I also took surface design for like actual textile design for mills. So I was given a really strong education in like the incredible versatility of fabric. And I had school loans. And I wanted to move to New York City, and I had a job lined up before I graduated and took it, and was thrilled at the opportunity just to immerse myself in New York. And that job really exposed me to a lot of fine art as well. I got to meet Lisa Yuskavovich and Urs Fischer, and a few other like big artists that were friends with my boss at the time. And I think I was also deeply impressioned by their sense of humor and just way of thinking, and so yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. I love that story. We have to have another conversation about that, but let's talk about right now. I mean, now you have your mom, like you have another role to add to your title. And how are you navigating motherhood and as well as your art career?
We were discussing a little bit earlier today how much I love to dance, and I've been taking ballet since I was 5, which I think really helped me learn a lot about work ethic and mind, like being mindful of your body, and also just the healthy like benefits of exercise. And so I really think of motherhood as a new type of choreography and a new rhythm in my life. I think I recently was in ballet class and I missed a step in the combination, but I knew what the next step was, and so I just went for it. So I stayed on the music, and my teacher just was like, she's like, I love it, you don't skip a beat. And so for me, that sort of summed up this like these new steps that I've been anticipating and sort of like going through as a new mother. Just keep on the music, and you're gonna miss a few steps. But to sort of be patient with yourself, and finding a new rhythm is challenging and takes time and practice. So I feel like it's become a new layer within my art practice as well. So
I love that the analogy of dance and the anticipation, and of course never skip a beat, right? So what are the most challenging aspect of being an artist?
Yes, well, I mean, after I just moved into this beautiful new space, and the last 3 weeks have been very challenging just with like logistics. I noticed that Art in America recently, their last page of every issue, they sort of feature someone that deals with the more logistics of fine art, which has been a fun little like window to pop into every now and again. Because it's like a puzzle sometimes. It's like where, like sometimes this piece is in a show, but the curator wants it, and this piece was sold, but someone wants the same thing, or like, I can't reach that wall today because I found out there's sheetrock here. So there's a lot of different sort of like trial and error aspects, and like a lot of logistical things that I think go on behind the scenes. It's like backstage, like when the curtains close, there's a lot of people running around to make that like show happen. But yeah, I would say that's one of the most challenging aspects for me.
How do you handle that? Like, how do you, like, when you hit a wall, like, how do you overcome those challenges as an artist?
I guess, like, from a practical standpoint, just like discovering that this wall was harder than I thought it was going to be. I feel very grateful for community, and I think that's something that I've been thinking a lot about during COVID and in the present day, is just how grateful I am for the community that I have, and the opportunity that there's still community to expand to and meet. And so for instance, this wall, I have people that can help me, and I can hire them, or friends that will come and help me sort of solve different issues. I also am very grateful for Home Depot. Well, they're moving to 61st and 1st at the end of the year. But there's lots of really knowledgeable people that work there. I think just not being afraid to ask questions and to lean on community. And I always sort of have this like rule of thumb for myself: if I don't know something, like to ask 3 different people, like from 3 different aspects of your life, to get some feedback, or just to sort of help you weigh out your own opinion and decision. I would say that is another challenge being an artist, is it's just a mountain of decisions like every day, like other aspects of life, but it's sort of like always maintaining your like center and like focus, and going with like that gut reaction, and always coming back to that. And I think that's why my dance practice really feeds my soul and creativity, to maintain that sense of balance and centeredness. And like there's this one teacher, Tara Mora, that I absolutely love working with, and she always, at the end of certain combinations, she says collect. And it's just such a great word to just remind yourself to like collect within. And it sort of just helps me kind of like quickly edit, and then I feel like more centered.
Collect within. I think that's a good reminder. What was the best advice you have gotten, and what advice would you give to yourself as younger self starting out?
I think something that I keep going back to all the time is that life expands our social fabric, art expands our social fabric, and so sort of being open to different ways of working and ways of creating and sort of centering around that is something that's always sort of floating in my mind as I'm working. It's something that I really value. And basically, you to be prepared for anything and everything all the time. Yeah, I mean, like from small things, like the second I finish a piece, like having it photographed and having the file saved and having the sizes ready, from something as like simple as that to thinking about like people that I want to meet in the industry and like reading up on them a little bit, or just being more aware of them and like having a little bit more knowledge within certain areas, if that's something that a direction I want to go into or grow from.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one core skill. You know, everyone has their own system of preparing or, you know, organizing or creating their work. So I think it's important.
Yes, absolutely. And I think another thing that's really important that I've noticed, it's so important to finish things. I think there was some quote by Louise Nevelson that I loved that was something along the lines of, it's not what we do, it's what we finish. And it's really easy to have like all these ideas and think, oh, I'm going to start this, and I'm going to start this, I'm going to do this. And you have all these things you're working on, but nothing gets finished. And it took me a long time to learn, like, to just finish one piece and let it be and learn from it and then move on to the next one, which is a very simple thing, but sometimes it's easier said than done. Literally.
It's true.
So,
I love that. I love that you actually taking a lesson from your previous work and that'll be the next piece. And oftentimes I think also it goes for artists in general. Sometimes they get overwhelmed because they're doing so many things at the same time. So how do you stay focused?
Yes, for me it's really important to sort of have like a little bit of like a blinder. Like this is sort of my working wall. And then I have like the other pieces I'm like referencing and thinking about that I'm growing from, but I have sort of like a clear focus. When I come in every day, I'm like ready to go right to work. I can just put down my bag and grab some water and put on some music and focus on that. And I try to also give myself a lot of time just to look at the piece, and sometimes that means turning it upside down or sideways, or moving it to a different wall just to make sure that it is holding the right gravity that I'm reaching for.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that advice too. Yeah, like just you know, building a system and try to stay focused, and preparation comes handy in this case. Like right, you just dive right in without any distractions around you. So no, that's a really good advice. So everyone has a different definition of success. So what does it mean for you?
So success for me is really about making goals and reaching them, and or not reaching them and being aware of it and just learning from it and moving on or adapting the goal. I think you know, success is that we're here together today and it's beautiful and sunny. I mean, that's like a huge success. And you know, being able to be here, you know, each day, especially with a new baby, I think of each day as its own success in a way, even if things aren't going as planned or like my shelving didn't arrive, so things have been a little slow moving around here lately. But I learned a lot within that, and now I'm like really good friends with the woman that sold me the shelves. So
you and your friend,
yeah,
that's a success.
Yeah.
So speaking of goals, I love that. I love every aspect of it. Like you take one day at a time.
Yes.
You reflect on the days. I mean, not everything has to go perfectly as planned. That's life, right? And sometimes the social expectation is that like achieving a goal could be like financial success or whatnot. I mean, that's the usually typical term, but in your own terms, it's more about achieving those goals. So do you have any specific goals you have for the next couple of months, and what would that look for you once you achieve them?
Yes, so I have a show coming up this fall at the Myrtle Beach Art Museum in South Carolina, and it's my first solo museum show, which I'm really excited about. And over the next few months, I'll be working on a special project for that museum that I'm not completely ready to unveil, but I think I will share that it's going to be the first time I've made something that's circular. I haven't explored that shape, which seems kind of almost ironic because so much of my work has these like really overflowing like organic edges, and they really lend themselves to something circular. So I'm excited to sort of learn from this new shape and composition that I'll be creating, because the eye can enter from any angle, so it's a new challenge from a compositional standpoint.
Oh, we can't wait to see it once it unveils and everything starts to unfold, and we can't wait to see it. So how can people connect with you in terms and follow your work?
So I have a website that's chellisbaird.com, and I'm also on Instagram, which is @Chellis Baird, and you can check out my story and my posts. I try to keep things pretty updated on there, and then my website is just a very quick overview of the range of work that I've made, and I update it pretty frequently, so there's a good amount of things to take a peek at.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I'll definitely include that in our info when we release the video. So last question is, who's your legendary artist?
Yes, so Louise Nevelson for sure. Yeah, I absolutely love Nevelson. I will say that I was extremely influenced by Barnett Newman, especially while working in the fashion industry. There were a few moments where I just went to the MoMA and was just completely overwhelmed by that giant red painting that's completely escaped my mind right now. That's in the MoMA.
The zip, is it?
It's not a zip. It's one of the big.
I think I know what you're doing.
Yeah. But the zip works as well were very. I also love that he used to wear a monocle, and I'm all about like a fun accessory. So that was also sort of a fun tidbit of information I learned when I was reading up on him some. But yeah, I think something about the minimal quality of his work and the range of colors that he uses. And but Louise Nevelson, absolutely. I mean, she has been a huge influence to me. Also loved fashion and would run around New York in like fur coats even in 100-degree weather because it was amazing to do so. And she was also a really avid modern dancer that I loved learning. And I have a really sweet friend named Herbert that is 97, and he actually used to take sculpture classes with Louise Nevelson, and apparently she loved to gossip. She would just like sit in the corner with him, and she would like go through like whatever the equivalent of page 6 was then, and like gossip about the news about town, and like which was sort of a fun thing to learn about. But I mean, her use of material, and to me the monochromatic execution of her work, just sort of really owning light and space and letting natural light do its dance over her work is just gives me complete chills. It's amazing. Her work is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I love it. We want to thank you so much for having us, inviting us literally in your studio and giving us a tour. And and thank you so much for sharing your artistic journey and navigating motherhood.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nina.